Dubey sir, you can start.
Okay. So good evening, friends. In the same chain of videos, I'm going to share a video of Krishnaji. It's a 30-minute video on freedom from fear. So just give me a minute. I'll start sharing the video. You're able to see it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What we are trying in all these discussions and talks here is to see if we cannot radically bring about a transformation of the mind. Not accept things as they are, nor revolt against. Revolt doesn't answer a thing. But to understand it, to go into it, to examine it, give your heart and your mind with everything that you have to find out, a way of living differently.
The speaker is Krishnamurti, one of the more original and challenging men of our time. During the past 4 decades, his writings and talks in Europe, Asia, and America have followed a singular path, free from factionalism and dogma. This talk, Freedom from Fear, is the third in a series of 8 programs in which Krishnamurti speaks directly to those subjects which most profoundly affect the human condition: love and death, fear, and our discontent. He speaks of the real revolution, a radical change in ourselves.
Considering what the world is now, with all the misery, conflict, destructive brutality, aggression, tremendous advancement in technology, and so on, it seems to me, though man has cultivated the external world and has more or less mastered it, inwardly, he's still as he was. Great deal of animal in him is still brutal, violent, aggressive, inquisitive, competitive, and he has built a society along these lines. And the more one observes, and I think almost everyone, unless totally blind, deaf, and dumb, is aware of the extraordinary contradictions of human beings. And to understand this extraordinary, complex problem of existence, one must have tremendous passion, which cannot possibly be supplied by the intellect or by casual sentiment or emotionalism. Or the passion aroused by committing oneself to a particular course of action, or belonging to a particular political or religious group. That does give certain quality of intensity, a certain elan, a certain drive. But through it all, there is the demand for gratification, for pleasure. And the whole structure of society, with its morality, with its gods, with its culture, with its entertainment, is based on pleasure. So we hope that you will so listen to what is being said, not hear a lot of words, to a lot of ideas, because ideas and words are not the fact. Ideas and words never bring about a radical revolution, a mutation in the mind. So we're not dealing with ideas and opinions and judgment. What we are concerned is with bringing about a radical revolution in the mind. And that revolution must take place without effort. Because all effort has behind it a motive. And a revolution with a motive is not a revolution at all. A change becomes merely a modified continuity when there is a motive. But a mutation, a radical transformation of the mind may take place when there is no motive, and when we begin to understand the psychological structure of not only of society, which is part of us, and to understand it, there must be the act of listening. Not listening to the speaker, but listening to what is actually taking place in our soul. So it is a responsibility how you all listen. Because we are taking a journey to the whole psychological structure of man. Because in the understanding of that structure and the meaning of it, we can then perhaps bring about a change in society. And society, God knows, needs a total change, a total revolution. So, as we were saying earlier, our whole concept, action, and urges are based on pleasure. And until one understands the nature and the structure of pleasure, there will always be fear. Fear, not only in our relationships with each other, but fear of all life, the totality of existence. So without understanding pleasure, there can be no freedom from fear. And we are not denying pleasure. We are not advocating puritanical way of living, a suppression of pleasure or a substitution of pleasure, or the denial of that thing that we call great satisfaction. We are examining. And in examination, there must be freedom from opinion. Otherwise, you can't examine. Pleasure is an extraordinary thing to understand. Needs a great deal of attention, a swiftness of mind, a subtle perception. So one has to understand. And to understand it, there must be neither withholding nor denying that quality, that principle of pleasure. And that's very difficult to do because we are so heavily conditioned to accept and to function with the motive of pleasure, with gratification. Therefore, we're always limiting our total attention. We look at life in fragments. And as long as the particular totality, particular fragmentation exists, one cannot possibly see the total. If one says, I must have a certain pleasure, and I'm going to hold on to it at any time, then we will not comprehend or see the total pattern of pleasure. And we are concerned with seeing the totality of pleasure, what is involved in it, the pain, the frustration, the agony, the remorse, the ache of loneliness when all pleasure is denied. And naturally, escape from all that through various forms, which again is the continuation of pleasure. And a mind that is caught, that is conditioned by this principle of pleasure, cannot obviously see what is true, cannot think clearly. And therefore, it has no passion. It translates passion as sexual or achieving some fragmentary activity and fulfillment in that fragment. So where there is no understanding of pleasure, there is only enthusiasm, sentimentality, which evokes brutality and callousness and all the rest of it. So what is pleasure? Because without understanding pleasure, there is no love. Love is not pleasure. Love is not desire. Love is not memory. Right? Pleasure denies love. Therefore, seems to me, it is important to understand this principle. Surely, pleasure is desire. Desire, which comes into being very naturally when you see something which gives you a stimulation, a sensation. And from that sensation, there is desire. And the continuation of that desire is pleasure. And that pleasure is sustained by thought. I see something, and in that contact with it, there is a sensation. The sensation is the desire sustained by thought. The thought is the response of memory. That memory is based on other experiences of pleasure and pain. And the thought gives to that desire the sustenance, the quality of pursuit and fulfillment. One can see this in oneself very simply. If one observes, it's all there in front of you. And the quality of observation cannot be taught by another. And if you are taught how to observe, you cease to observe. And you have merely the technique of observation, which prevents you from actually seeing yourself. For yourself is the whole of mankind, with all the aches and the miseries, with the solitude and loneliness, despair, utter loneliness of existence, meaningless, it all. And when you do so observe, it unfolds endlessly, which is life itself. Then you know you're not dependent on anybody, on any psychologist, on any theologian, or any priest, or any doctor. Then you are looking at this movement of life, which is yourself. But unfortunately, we cannot look with clarity because we are driven by this principle of pleasure. So to understand pleasure, one has to understand the structure of thinking. Because it's thought that gives continuity to pleasure. I've had an experience of pleasure yesterday, of different kinds, and thought thinks about that pleasure. And demands its continuity. So, memory of that pleasure of yesterday is reacting, demanding that it be renewed through thought. And thought is time, thinking about the past pleasure, past gratification, yesterday's delight and enjoyment. And that thought demands its continuity now. And thought projects the tomorrow's pleasure. And thought creates the past, the present, and the future, which is time. I have had that pleasure, I am going to have it, and I shall have it. This time quality is created by thought, bred, put together by thought. And thought is time, and it is time that creates fear. And without probing into this time, pleasure, thought, we are always bound by time. And therefore, time has never stopped. It's only when there is an end to time that is something totally new. Otherwise, it's merely a continuity of what has been modified through the present and conditioned by the future. For a human being to be free of fear, fear about the future, fear about the dozen fears that human beings have, conscious or undiscovered fears. Fears of the neighbor, fears of death, fear of being lonely, insecure, uncertain, fear of being confused, fear of being stupid and not trying to become very clever. Fear. Fear is always in relation to something. It doesn't exist by itself. And to be totally free of fear, not partially, not a fragment of that totality of what's considered fear, to be totally, that is, psychologically, to be completely be free of fear. One must understand thought, time, and pleasure. And this understanding is not intellectual or emotional. Understanding can only come when there is total attention. When you give your complete attention to pleasure, how it comes into being. What is time? Time, which thought has created. I was, I will be, I am. I must change this into that. This idea of gradual process, this idea of gradual psychological evolution of man. And that's very gratifying. Will gradually all of us become extraordinarily kind. We shall gradually lose all our violence, aggression. We'll all be brotherly at one time, much later. This gradual concept, which is generally called evolution, psychological, seems to me so utterly false. We are not offering an opinion. This is a fact. Because when you give your attention to something completely, there is no time at all. You don't say, I will do it tomorrow. In that state of attention, there's neither yesterday, today, or tomorrow. Therefore, time has come to an end. But that ending of time cannot possibly be when there is the center as the principle of pleasure. Pleasure has in it pain. The two things cannot be separated. Pleasure is pain. If you have observed, so you cannot possibly psychologically avoid pain if you are pursuing psychologically pleasure. We want the one and we don't want the other. we function emotionally. Want and not want. And when deep issues, fundamental problems are concerned, and to give to your mind totally to it, it's rather difficult when all your life is being dissipated in fragmentary action. And when we do act totally, we only do it when there is a crisis. Then you wake up and give your whole attention. And this is a crisis. A talk of this kind is a crisis, is a challenge. Can't just push it aside. Therefore, it may be rather difficult, maybe perhaps arduous to follow all this. But it won't be arduous if you're following your own state of mind. It's like sitting on the bank of a river and watching the river waters go by. And when you so watch, there is neither the observer nor the observed. There is only a movement. But that to observe, that there must be no fear, no time, no sense of pleasure and the demand for gratification. Then in that state, you can observe the whole movement of life. Movement of life, which is agony, despair, the ache of meaningless existence, the routine, the boredom, the great fears as of death, which we'll talk about another day. So you can watch all this. And when you so observe, the observer is that which is observing. And then you can go beyond all this. And the mutation can only take place in the mind when time, pleasure, and fear have come to an end. And therefore, there is a certain dimension of quality which cannot be approached through thought.
This has been the third of 8 programs presenting Krishnamurti, whose original and challenging approach to the problems of our time places him outside any simple category, such as philosopher or religious leader. Filmed in the Ojai Valley in California, the series represents the first time that Krishnamurti has permitted his talks to be filmed. The next program is called Meditation.
Yes, Harshad bhai.
Yes, are you able to hear my voice?
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Dubey ji. Krishna ji in this video talks about fear. And fear is only one of the problems we go through. But as Krishna ji says, there are other problems also, like loneliness or boredom or jealousy, anger. So the source of all these problems of psychological nature, it comes from thinking. And thinking is very unique to human beings. And as we grow up, we learn language, we go through some experiences and the memory. And so thinking is common to all human beings, and our life is lived after we learn the language and learn how to speak and express. Our life is mostly lived in the plane of thinking and feeling. And when we are in that plane, we cannot see the whole of it. We don't see that how thinking creates fear. Like I am now here in Canada and I am quite secure for 3-4 weeks. I will be here. But when I have to travel, and then my thinking will start. I will have to catch the bus, and then I have to take the plane, and then there are connections to be made. And so a thought will come and will create fear. Will I be able to do this? So our problem is that we are thinking, and this thinking is not observed. Then fear arises. So there is something else in our being apart from thinking and feeling, and that what Krishna ji calls that awareness or attention, and that is coming out from the plane of thinking and feeling and looking at thoughts and feeling very, very clearly. So in that looking, there are no fear, there are no problem. It's a complete attention. And I read somewhere that even when Krishnaji had to travel in his old age, his body used to tremble. And he was watching his body, and he told that the body is reacting to the travel in old age. And it was not a fear. So when we are really observing without the observer, seeing clearly how our thoughts and feelings are moving, then there are no problems. And for that, one needs to be extremely passionate to look at our inner world, even when there are no problems. Because generally, we try to understand ourselves when there are problems, but when something is going on all the time in our life, so when we become curious, passionate, have energy to look, then at a certain stage, this looking becomes effortless. And in that, there is no effort involved, no energy involved, and it becomes like our nature. And so this is kind of what Krishna ji is talking about, mutation in the mind. It comes this, the whole movement of life and all these words Krishna ji is using, it means living in a, not in the field of thinking and feeling, but seeing clearly everything. So, okay, I have said enough thing right now. Later on, maybe we can see. Thank you, Dubeji.
Thank you, Harshad bhai. Yes, Mr. N. Rama Rao.
Sir, just my question is that whatever I could see through thought, the thought also, then when it plays, it comes through with psychological content like dislike, pleasure, pain, everything. It is associated with that. So when it is coming in such a tremendous force, whatever it comes in between, it will take away just like a tsunami. So in that question, what Krishnamurti says that this love, it is one type of another memory or another imagination. So it becomes a very confusing state. How to handle this? And I want to say that most of the things Harshad ji is covered. So but, the thought flow is such a tremendous flow, and it is covering everything, whatever it comes in between. And if we could see that thought, the thought flow, if I go one step back, strong desire. That desire also, it's a very difficult to see what is the motive behind the thought also. Because after some distance of the traveling of that flow, what is happening? I could aware something. So in between, if I aware also, it is not making much difference. Not much difference. It becoming a slow down. So it becoming a bit slow down. That much I can claim. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rama Rao. I think it's important to watch how thought comes and what role the self plays in, in watching that thought. Because as you must have heard, Krishna talks about the center, because that is the core thing which creates all kinds of problems. I don't think we can do anything except be watchful, be attentive to what is happening. Harshad bhai, you want to say something?
Yeah. What I like to say that when we are on the plane, like a flat floor, and we are on that floor, we cannot see the whole floor because there is a backside and sides. But when we come out from that in the third dimension, above the floor, then we can see what is happening on the floor. And so we can really see how thoughts and feelings, they are coming only in this third dimension called awareness. And as long as that it hasn't happened, this awareness is not awakened in human beings, thinking will keep on creating problems and it will multiply. So only our passionate curiosity to go to the source of thinking itself, that may bring about freedom from thinking. So sometimes I ask even students, when they are in the classroom, I ask them, can you tell me the beginning of your next thought? So everybody becomes very, very quiet. And then that quietness, many people find it very uncomfortable, this kind of silence. It is kind of an imposed silence. And so we try to escape from that clarity, freedom, silence is frightening, because in that there is no sense of I or me. It doesn't exist. And it is like a psychological death. And that's why this freedom is very, very frightening. But that freedom, if a person is not afraid of that psychological death, then there is a kind of a real looking everything free, looking at thoughts and feelings without any problems. And then we can really see the beauty around us. We can really feel the love in which the sense of self doesn't exist. So as long as this coming out from the thinking self has not happened, or it is very frightening, then we remain on the floor of thinking and feeling, and remain with the problem, and we can understand intellectually everything what Krishna ji is saying. But if it is not happened really in our life, then it will remain at that intellectual level only. So everything, it depends on our passion, curiosity, energy, and we are really not afraid to die to the self. Okay, I have said enough. Yeah.
Thank you, Harshad. I want to add that, I don't know of a state where one is totally thoughtless, because the way I look at it, that state is where I'm totally unconscious. Then there's no thought that I'm aware of. But it's a possibility to reach a state where I'm aware of every thought, every thinking that is passing through my mind. I'm attentive, and that thought is not creating any difficulty in its seeing. The self is not creating a problem. That is possible. If one is attentive, one is quiet, and you said the key word, there has to be silence. That silence doesn't mean that there is no thought at all, but the thought is not creating any problem in my seeing. This is what I wanted to add. Yes, Dinesh ji, please unmute yourself.
Are you able to listen to me?
Yeah.
Today's discussion is on freedom from psychological fear. So we are not considering physiological fear or actual fear rises from physical insecurity. JK says in a nutshell, to have freedom from the fear, one has to understand the structure of pleasure, desire, thinking and thought, and time. JK also further says pleasure is pain. My understanding is when you do not get pleasure as per desire, then you get pain. So this is in a way psychological insecurity. It is in a way psychological insecurity according to which we move in life. Pleasure is sustained by thought, and thought is response of memory, which is past record of pleasure and pain. Here I would also like to remind you that last discussion we have asked whether desire is created by thought or thought just expresses that desire. So here in this, he has already confirmed that after sensation, the desire arises and thought only sustains it. So there is directly no relation between thought and desire, but thought fuels it. That much is there. Once the memories are formed, then thought fuels it for the next time pleasure if you want to have. Further, he says, thought projects plan for future pleasure and does create past, present, future means time. And time creates fear because of insecurity of not getting pleasure. So JK is trying to say here, if you want to be free from psychological fear, you should understand structure of pleasure basically, which also covers pain. If you are trapped in the pleasure, then probably you may not be in a position to free yourself from the this issue. He is also indirectly suggesting that you should be free from past memory and conditioning, freedom from psychological. He is also indirectly suggesting that you should be free from past memory and conditioning, or freedom from psychological fears. And again, he is suggesting need for learning the observation, which Harshad sir has always been pointing out, without motive and flame of attention. Here my views are, by understanding structure of pleasure, desire, thought and time, and by observation and attention, hypothetical fears in psyche, out of proportion fears in psyche, blown up fears in psyche can be removed to a great extent. But the fears which are proportional to the outer situation or external stimulus will remain till the situation changes. Say, for example, Harshad sir has said, returning back from Canada, unless that journey is over, whatever anxiety is there or whatever the fear is there, it will remain. So, whatever we are discussing, this has got nothing to do with the actual or proportional fears. Those will create psychologically and those will go when the situation will subside. The remains of it, how much the remains or registering of it will remain, that depends on individual. And unless my views are very clear, unless he gets the maturity of, unless he gets the wisdom, he may not be in a position to free from it as fast as possible. JK has also talked about the radical change and mutation of mind In my views, it depends on individuality of person as such to what level he grows in maturity. Unless he grows to the level of maturity, he understands all this structure, he understands all the consequences of these, he will not be free from the fears. This is what I think, or my views are. As for JK, this should not require time or effort. JK says if you understand, it will drop immediately, or no time is required to get the wisdom and maturity. But as for me, this is debatable and requires further exploration. Maybe in a case, individual case, it is possible, but in all cases, we have to see, we have to discuss. Right now, I want to submit this much only. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, Durga ji.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. I am audible, sir?
Yeah. Yes, you
yes.
are.
It's Krishnaji's video is very powerful, very as usual, very authentic. And compared to the last video, we have seen there it was very slowly and precisely went into all the aspects of whatever we have seen last time. So in this year, it was very direct, and there are no mincing of words. And he says, fear is it's a fact. It's not an opinion, And the principle of pleasure, unless and until we understand the principle of pleasure, which is interlinked with the fear, pleasure, pain, fear, they all come from the same stream. Our natural predisposition, maybe he also said that, is deeply conditioned. That's what is life all about for us. Running after pleasure, and if we don't get the pleasure, the pain. And when we are in that state, the fear. What if I get the pain? How to, how to suppress the pain? All these things, whatever he stated in that video, I think they are absolute truths for us. They are absolute reality for all of us. But he says to see all this movement without time, without effort, and he says there is no evolution as such. There is no gradual seeing as such. I think when he states, so strongly those statements, it becomes a problem for us, because we, at our level, I don't think we have that much of, I don't know what kind of a state of mind that is required to drop all of them in one go. Nevertheless, he states all that, because unless and until he puts all that in on the table, we may keep on, procrastinating, and we may keep on indulging, and we may feel slothful, lazy to do all that. So that's why he keeps saying about that, brings that urgency of it. So he says this is either now or never. Unless and he puts that in our minds, I think procrastination is also another very important element in our psyche. So we are going to do that. That's why he always comes with that, the blanket statement. Either it is now or never. So you see it now. That's what he says. So otherwise also, if you look at it in a broad sense, what are our lives, our day-to-day lives are, what are the lives we have been living all these years? It's all about running after something or the other. Isn't it so? So to some extent, we understand all that. But when the moment comes, like, our previous speakers, like Harshad ji and, Mr. Rama Rao, very honestly, they stated about their fears, the fear of traveling, the old age, and, the emotional turmoil we go through, relationships, with our family members and all. I think they will be there. There is no way we can, Krishnaji never addresses what to do with them. He says we go through the turmoil, we go through the turbulence, we feel the intensity of it, and we get lost in it because we are not aware of it. We are not bothered to see the all nuances of it. And as Mr. Rama Rao very honestly acknowledged, he says that the stream, the flow will be there, but he also stated that it slows down. The intensity will be less. Maybe that's all we can hope for. And maybe gradually, because the gradual word Krishnaji doesn't exist in Krishnaji's dictionary, but for us it is so. So I think this is all when we start discussing this, living this, applying our minds to all these things, maybe this changes start happening in us. And for the timing, I just want to say that much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Durga ji. I think Durga ji, we must remember that Krishna never believed in partial transformation. He always talks of that total transformation. But for most of us, I think, as you rightly mentioned, there is that gradual change that happens. And I'm not saying that I'm better today or I'll be best tomorrow and things of that kind, but it needs preparation. It needs preparation to reach a stage where I can watch my thought. I read Krishna and, for him, memory didn't create any problems for him. But I remember, in Rajghat, he would come and suddenly he will ask the administrative officer, where is this tree which was here last year? He remembered it. And the fellow will find it difficult to explain how it did die and so on, But for him, it was not a problem. But the memory creates so much problems for us in our daily living. So one has to really watch that memory, or that thought which is coming from our memory. So we may not entirely see what Krishna is talking about, but there is certainly preparation which is needed to come to certain level of understanding. This is what I wanted to add. We can go to Prasad Garu now. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Sir, in this video, Krishnaji has, the subject is freedom from fear. But actually, he talks about freedom from pleasure. He connects fear with pleasure. So long as there is pursuit of pleasure, freedom, there won't be freedom from fear. That reminds me of a poem by Keats. It says, it is titled The Ode to Melancholy. Melancholy there, it appears, means a sadness. So ode to sadness. It says, in the very temple of delight, veiled melancholy hath her sovereign shrine. So, in the temple of delight, the sadness sits, which means the pursuit of pleasure results in a kind of sadness, melancholy, or pain. That seems to be the connection. Otherwise, Krishnaji has not explained how this pursuit of pleasure results in fear. That connection he has not explicitly mentioned, but implicitly that seems to be the intention. That is, pursuit of pleasure has this result of creating fear. Why? You are always afraid that your pursuit of a particular pleasure may not succeed. So implicitly there is that fear. And he has, of course, he has so many times explained what is pleasure. He has explained what is desire. And now here he says, desire is connected with pleasure. Both are more or less the same. Desire results in pursuit of pleasure because thought, first there is contact, sensation, then when thought takes over, desire is born. That sequence he has explained so many times. But here he says, desire is also pleasure, or pleasure is desire. There is a connection between these two. And then time. Thought creates a time. Time is a factor of fear. Time is the past. We live in time. Thought, the past, the present, and the future. So you're always, that the memory may not create a problem for Krishnaji. For us also, it doesn't create a problem unless that memory has an emotional content about it, a content of sorrow or some such thing. Otherwise, if I remember the playground where I played when I was a boy, that doesn't create any problem. So memory is inevitable. That is what we have said in the last meeting also. So time, pleasure, thought, these are connected, and freedom from fear means you have to understand these interconnections between these items. You cannot discipline yourself out of them. You cannot shed those things. And gradualism, of course, Krishnaji is totally against it. Whether we can reach his standard or not, that's a different matter. But intellectually, we can understand that there is nothing like gradualism. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Prasad Garu. Yes, Verma Sahab.
Yes. Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Another very good video where JK describes the sequence of how it develops. I'm telling my own experience, how with fear, how I grappled with fear. And when fear gripped, what happened to me? At that moment, you have to watch your fear. What is behind that? Invariably, fear is always psychological, whether the reason is physical behind it or material, and it doesn't matter. If fear is there, it's always psychological. And when fear is that, you have to watch carefully your fear, what is behind it. You will find a thought associated with it. And then thought, either what you had some crisis in your past, you are just recalling that, or based on that, you are weaving a future. So whether you have to be attentive, whether at that moment you are suffering any one of these things, that past and future, no. At that moment, it is not there. It is just a thought. This has happened to me a number of times in the midnight when some
a thought, bizarre thought comes like this, and I started feeling uncomfortable, then if you see it carefully, that right at this moment I have nothing. It's just a thought, like a ghost troubling me. So this very attention frees you from any fear. It's either about the past or about the future. So that is one thing. Pleasure, if you see the nature of pleasure, he has talked about it. We are all pleasure seekers. We are running after pleasures. But if you see the nature of pleasure, it doesn't remain. It is like a peak that comes and then goes back. Always is fluctuating. So this again shows the nature of pleasure. It cannot be stable. No stable peace can be attained through pleasure. No chance. Even scientifically, you can see, logically, you can see that the nature of pleasure, it comes and goes, it comes and goes. Even anger comes and goes, and all these things are there. So that very nature can free you from these things. Desire, of course, is almost pleasure-based. So that is not a problem. These are all related to my attachments, everything. So fear, one can be, at that moment, you have to see whether that thing is happening or it's just a thought in my mind. And you are, most of the times, you are not, if you are suffering physically, if you are having some disease, then naturally you are supposed to be attentive about the disease itself. You don't have to think about it. You have to be with the disease. That is the common sense. That is the best thing one can do. But otherwise, in most of the times, when fear comes, it's at that moment you have no problem. It's just a thought in your mind, and that is troubling you. So this is so very easy, very easy. It comes, and you have to be attentive. You have to just get that much margin, that much space in my mind is there to watch your fear and see what is behind it. So that becomes it's not a problem at all. Thank you very much. This is all what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Pradeep ji. Thank you. Yes, Harshad bhai.
Yes, I would like to say that pleasure, pain, fear, they all have common source, and that source is thinking, and thinking is time, because we always have what will happen, that is concern about the future or something happened in the past, and that creates the time, and it creates pleasure, pain, fear. All our problems are coming from that. So thinking we cannot avoid, and thinking by itself, it doesn't create problem. It creates problem only when there is no awareness or attention. And in the light of awareness or attention, then we can really see how our thoughts are moving, and they don't create any problem. And another thing I would like to say, that pleasure and pain both are in that there is the self or thought is involved, but happiness is something different. Happiness in that there is no sense of I or me. And Dubeji said that he can be aware of thought, but Dubeji says that he has not felt the silence. But I would say that silence also happens, and that we can call the pure awareness, in which we can see all the objects as well as everything what is happening inside as well as outside can be seen without the I or me coming into picture. And that is the pure awareness. And about the gradual change, I would say that first time when a person feels that has really felt a new state which had not felt before. But then that gives a taste that there is something else apart from thinking and feeling within us. But then it goes away, and then we are again caught into thoughts and feelings. But then again we become curious and we come out. So there is a time is involved in maturing this insight, and then later on it may not no effort is involved in just coming out from thinking and feeling and looking at it. And so then we really sense that there is a real love and beauty in our life. Otherwise we remain at a intellectual level, and we will have conflict with people around and within ourselves. So there is a gradual change happens even after the momentary insight happens. And yes, let me see. Okay, I think I have said enough. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shripati. Yes, Mr. Ravi Kaushal, unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Sir, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Put on your video also, please.
Yes, 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 sir. So today the topic is fear. The case said that the fear and pleasure go together. And there are two sides of one coin. Like if there is fear, if there is pleasure, if there is fear. But, in my journey, I see that when I read K, I read subject this fear, and I go with the energy that I have to end this fear just by listening. Okay, just by listening. Okay. So in that I see, I somewhere I said I have this. So to when you're listening, you listen to the subject like you have to end it now, not in time, but you have to end it to end the fear now. So he's saying that the pleasure and fear go together, and then he said that as long as maybe he said or not, I didn't remember that, but it's there in my memory. And where he said that I think as long as there is as long as the mind is seeking pleasure of any kind, you are bound to live in the network of fear. So this statement shows me all the pleasures I have in my life at that very moment. So and one more thing has happened, that leads me that the pleasure leads me that there is attachments, and then I see all the attachments with my wife or with my kids or with my property. I see all these things, and I see that that seeing is that as a fact that it is there, and without condemning or justifying that thing. The attachment with my wife is there, so I'm going to see, and I have read that one more statement that the root cause of sorrow is attachment. That gives me the energy. Maybe I think this is Anandama's statement, I think. So the root cause of sorrow is attachment. So this gives me the energy to free myself from all the attachments I have in that very moment. So this leads me to see all the attachments I have in my life, all the attachments, including my property and my business and all that. And one more thing also happened. I was in love. I am also in love with the love is. I love Nisargadatta Maharaj so much. So one day there was a miscarriage of my wife. For a 6-month child, I got dead in my hand. My English is so bad, so I was in big pain at that time. So I was, I was driving the car. The dead body of my boy is in my hand, and I was just driving. So and the fear and the tears coming out, and I forgot that place where I have to bury that Shamshan Ghat, and I keep on driving. So after that, when I came to home, and then I start fighting with my master, Nisargat Maharaj. And I told him that when I didn't ask anything from you, why did you take it back? It's a. I know that this is all created by mind, but this is somehow love connection images वो बना लेता है. तो वो मेरी उनके साथ बातचीत थी, तो उसमें I have asked him कि जब मैंने तुझसे मांगा नहीं तो तूने मुझसे छीना क्या? तो और मैं उनसे लड़ा. Then in love there is something, some answer comes from your own heart, but then the Nisargat Maharaj said that it's that the Nisargat Maharaj, which I have created in my mind, said that to me that meri cheez thi, it's mine. मैंने दी, मैंने वापस ले ली. I give you and I take it back. Why are you worrying? And another thing, just go and see whether you are in love with me or with the things, with the relationships or with the properties which you have, with the body which you have, or you love in me. Just find that answer and then come to me. That image told me like that. So all these things happen in my life. So these all things I don't have I didn't have the answer at that time. I cannot face that answer, that question at that time. And then somehow the attachment with the family, with the business, with this all, somehow it's vanished, and still I'm doing work, and there is no and fear and all. So to me, these two profound statements gives me that the root cause of sorrow is attachment. Only this statement of Anandima, it shows me all the attachments. And just I'm saying that if you really want to free yourself from fear, see the fear, all the fears you have. उसको कुछ भी चीज छुपाने का नहीं है. All the fears, and then let it happen. Let all the things on there, and then there is a space in your consciousness which is free from all that. Still they are there. Relationships are there. If something happened to my wife or my child, I will definitely go in panic and do all the work. But all these things are like, on the periphery of the consciousness. Deep down, it will not affect me. So it's like that. So I just want that you must have that energy that you have to end fear right now. And the one more thing, that the gradual change. In consciousness, you may have gradual changes, but awareness is totally different. This is not awareness is the it's a seeing. It's a seeing of is a seeing the consciousness and totally free from the consciousness. It's that kind of thing. So this thing I'm saying that if you want to end fear, you must see all the pleasures and attachments. That's it. And
Thank you. Yes, Durga ji, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think there are not many people are there. Let me not take longer time. First of all, I would like to appreciate Mr. Ravi Kaushal for sharing his intense moments of, the pain, the sorrow which had gone through. I just would like to sum up, the important points that had come out of this discussion today. Like you said that, what all we are going through is a kind of preparation. That's a very valid point you stated, sir. And so was Mr. Dinesh. He said that wisdom and maturity are important to such an extent. And now Mr. Ravi Kaushal, he summarized that, the root cause of sorrow is attachment. From his own very code of his problems, he has very honestly, he brought it up. And very nicely also he said that, the image he has created of Nisargadatta Maharaj. Same way, maybe we also create some image of Krishna ji in our minds, and we also keep talking to him. We also bring him down to our level. I think maybe to some extent it's important also, sir. Because at some point Krishna ji says, go beyond me, don't make me a crutch. And there's one more fundamental statement of Krishna ji: be a light to oneself. So ultimately, you are the teacher and you are the disciple. And there are not going to be any crutches there, no more books and no more videos. Because when you face a problem, when you are the problem there, you are the one who has to come out with a solution. So that's what I have to say, sir. And I would like to say, sir, when we are discussing about pleasure, okay, we have all understood what Krishna ji talked about in the video. How do we discern them from, and one more point, sir. Mr. Prasad had said that, memory, as long as it doesn't have an emotional content to it, it is not a problem. I feel that's also a very valid point, sir. Memory of all the normal incidents, they don't cause much problem to us. Memory with emotional content to it, that is the one which leaves, marks on us and which doesn't allow us to, be free with that. So that's also a very important point, sir. So pleasure, like I enjoy a certain cup of tea in a particular way, or a coffee in a particular way, or I have to have some moments of, morning walk or something like that. Those are all pleasurable moments for me. So, so when we are discussing about this pleasure, so what are the activities of the pleasure which, we should avoid, and definitely we know that, emotional content and the deep rooted things we need to avoid. So maybe we can have, discussion, we can throw slightly little bit light on that, sir. That's all, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Dinesh ji, we have about 7 minutes, so I'll request all three of you to be very, very brief.
Yeah, are you able to listen to me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I differ from Harshad ji that thinking is the only problem for fear. I also personally feel that fears, because of most of the pressures, are superficial problems. Basically, all the fears are rooted in insecurity, which is because of the perception of danger, loss, hurt, etc. As humans are having capacity limitations. As long as one feels that the conditions are under his control, he will not be having any fear. The confidence may be because of past memory or physical energy or any support from outside. So these points are all to be considered. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, Harshad bhai.
Yes, I like to say that the most fundamental fear we have is the fear of death of the body, and also there is death of the self, me, I. So as long as this I, me exists, there will be attachment, because there is a I exists, so there will be attachment, and that attachment lead to anger, fear, and all the problems associated. So this spiritual quest is about body will die sooner or later, we all know, but whether this sense of I or me can come to an end, and that fear exists, that this me doesn't want to die, the me created by thinking. That means it is very difficult for most people to come out of thinking, because thinking creates the self, this I or me. So to be that psychological death is very, very frightening, but that is the real freedom. So as long as we have not really seen this, not through thinking, but through awareness or attention, when we see that thought creates this self, And then the self creates many problems, attachment and all that, fear. So the spiritual quest is to be free from the I or me, which comes from thinking. So it means that coming out from thinking and feeling and being looking, listening, learning without this self coming into existence. So that is the real beauty. And that is what Krishna ji is talking about, living without I or me, which creates all the problems, attachment, fear, pleasure. Thank you. Right.
Thank you. Yes, Verma sir. We have just 3-4 minutes. Yeah.
I think Harshad Bhai has covered most of these points I wanted to raise. The main fear is fear of death, that is losing continuity. Losing continuity. And JK talked about dying from moment to moment. That is free from attachment. That Ravi also has talked about it, and Harshad Bhai has. I don't have much to say, but these are the main problem. Attachment is the main. Thank you very much. And let Rajendran talk. I think he's waiting for us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Verma ji. Thank you, Dubey ji. And a good evening to all our friends here. So, as Harshad ji rightly said, this thought, actually in the Buddhism, the thought is also considered as one of the senses. So the thought...
Krishna has also said thought to be a sense.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So the thought overpowers all other senses. Or it may not be possible for all the senses, including the thought, everything, all working together. It's not. I think it is not at all possible. It's not happening. I'm watching IPL game and Dhoni is playing, my favorite batsman, and there is a 4K HD TV, Dolby sound, etc. So I saw some advertisement or something. So immediately my memory intervenes and thought for a few seconds or minutes, I missed that the Dhoni sixer. Even though I'm just looking at it, I was so passionately watching the TV, but a few seconds or minutes, I missed that sixer. I was totally blind and totally deaf. So the thought intervenes and hijacks all other senses, or when thought works, other senses are become silent, or I became blind and deaf. It is happening. Number two, the body intelligence. It says, I'm hungry or I am thirsty. That message is sent through chemical transmitters or neurotransmitters to the brain, and a thought responds to that. And body says intelligence is only thirsty or hungry. For thirsty, even a glass of water is sufficient. Plain water is sufficient. The body is not asking Coca-Cola or some lassi or anything. But thought interrupts that body sensation or body's need into something, because it tasted that lassi, mango lassi, some days back, it was so it wanted like. So everything, all the body intelligence also, the thought always hijacks and led us into a lot of problems. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rajendran. I think we have come to the close of our session now. Next Sunday, we'll have Mr. Vijay Chabra. We have heard him once. He is the trustee of the foundation and he looks after the Himalayan retreats in Uttarkashi and Jalna. And Chabra Sahib will be talking to us on disease of half-heartedness. So next Sunday at 11 o'clock. You're all welcome to join if you're free. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dubey sir. Thank you. Thanks to all participants.
Thank you. Good
Is
night.
there any preparation for love, sir? Is there any preparation required for love?
Sir, you can share your experience. I think that will be useful.
No, I don't think. I don't need any preparation. Nobody needs any preparation.
Yes,
And
the kind
whatever we are talking with each other, it is just scratching back of every person. We are saying तुम डरे हुए हो, तो खौफ का नाम खुदा ही है हमेशा ही. वो खौफ जो है वो खुदा बन के ही बैठता है, वो भले कृष्ण बन जाए, चाहे निसर्ग दत्त बन जाए, चाहे कृष्ण मूर्ति बन जाए, पर खौफ खौफ ही रहता है। और खौफ का इलाज प्रेम के अलावा कुछ नहीं। जब
सही
आप
बात।
प्रेम करते हो तो कोई खौफ नहीं है, कोई डर नहीं है, और कोई प्रिपरेशन की रिक्वायर्ड, नो प्रिपरेशन इज रिक्वायर्ड, व्हाट आई फील।
Yes, yes.
So
Thank you.
let us
Thank you.
close the session, and
Okay.
I request everybody to think it again.